Well, so I mentioned that the phonologist at Brown, Elon Drescher, really broadened my horizons about what phonetics could be like. And so I did a lot of early work on the phonetics of phonological contrasts, levels of abstraction in phonetic description. And those have been interests of mine throughout my career. I think some of the early questions I was wrestling with have reappeared in different forms throughout my career. One thing that was important to me at the time as a very early researcher, when I was a postdoc in Ken Stevens' lab, there were several other postdocs, and postdocs in his lab came from a variety of fields: engineering, speech communication, speech disorders broadly, different names for that field, psychology, and linguistics. And it seemed as if at least some of the other postdocs viewed being in the lab as an opportunity to move into industry, to not be academics, or if academics, to leave any linguistics they had once been studying behind. And when I came to realize this about the people around me, I thought, okay, no, I've got to, that's the pressure. That's how people are reacting to this environment. I've really got to keep aware of how to keep being a linguist. How can the work I do here be about linguistic phonetics and not a pathway into some whole other kind of career? And I think, again, that was a really important shaper of the kinds of questions I was interested in early on, which then kind of have lasted throughout my career. Well, I think it's fair to say these challenges are the same as for universities in general and humanities departments and divisions in particular. Um, so funding, uh, political pressures, so funding both within a university and extramurally, the problems of getting research funding from any and all sources is a challenge for phonetics as it's done today. Whether you're doing field work or experiments, you're going to need some form of funding. The pressures to justify your existence through high enrollments are problems for some, though not all, linguistics and phonetics programs. Pressures, just as I said, that universities face in general. Specifically with respect to the IPA, the kind of phonetics that the IPA supports, I think the biggest challenge is that in general, I think it's fair to say there is less interest in phonetic transcription as a skill. I know that many American departments, linguistics departments, have modified their curricula to minimize or eliminate training in traditional ear training, phonetic transcription, and certainly in production, even though there's correspondingly a great increase in interest in field work and language documentation. This isn't always supported by training in phonetics. And so it is a challenge for phonetics as a field, and perhaps for the IPA as a supporter of that field, to encourage programs to continue or to reinstate traditional phonetic training as, for example, a necessary tool in the toolbox of language documenting. First, read widely and historically.
Please.
Please. Don't just read what you need for your next class or assignment. And as you read, ask yourself, what next? What would come next after this work? So as you read, you're not just absorbing what's been done, but you're trying to project the future of a research program around that particular work. Even if you're not going to engage with that at all, it's just really good training, self-training to be able to think that way, that you're not just there to get what they have to offer, but to think, how would I move this forward if I were so inclined? The other advice I would give, and this had already come up a bit in an earlier answer, is what I would call find a dream team. Find colleagues. They don't have to be at your own institution, though that's certainly convenient. Colleagues somewhere that who have a slightly different expertise from you, and that the overlap of your expertise with theirs can suggest shared research questions that need all of your joint expertises to address. And because of that need for a wide range of expertise, probably are not being addressed already. So finding a dream team to collaborate with can be a very happy experience and a very social experience, and is a nice counter to the sit alone and read widely and historically advice that's also so important. Yeah. Jody, you have any advice?
I agree 100%. It's so much more fun when there's other people to talk to and bounce ideas off of, and when their perspectives are different than yours, it makes such a difference. And yeah, I've had a highly collaborative career, and I think that's one reason why I've been so happy in my work. I never think that someone can't be your collaborator or doesn't have something to offer. Language is everywhere. It's woven into every aspect of human experience. And you just never know who's going to have an idea that's going to kind of ring something in your head. So don't assume that just because it's a lawyer or an engineer that
or a musicologist.
Or a musicologist, yeah, or God forbid, a head and neck surgeon, that you don't assume that they don't have something that's going to be really valuable and that's going to pull you down a path that you just fall in love with and you're happy forever after.
We should all be so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might add something someone once said to me that they tell their students. Well, two things that I've heard from other people. One is make a 5-year plan. It can be associated with applying for extramural funding, but at any one point, if you have a 5-year plan, you'll feel more secure in what you're doing, even understanding that that plan could change in response to the developments of your research or meeting colleagues that you'd like to collaborate with. For the student, a young researcher who's a student who is looking for an advisor, someone once told me they always tell their students, find 2 advisors, again, with slightly different expertises, and your research fits in where their expertises overlap, because that is very likely to be new research questions, new approaches to old questions.
I might add one more, which is never stop asking why. Don't be satisfied with describing the previously undescribed language or doing your statistical test and reporting the values. You've got an answer to your hypothesis, but why that answer? Why not some other answer? Where, as Pat said, to take the things you read and see where does that go next? It's a very similar kind of question because most of the good questions are why questions, in my opinion, and they don't get asked as often as they should.
Yeah.
I've rejected a lot of papers that I don't know why they did this and why the results happened. I know what they found. I just don't know why I should care about it.
Right.
So always remember to do that.
Right. Well, so I'm not going to answer this about actually currently, as in right now at this moment, but I'll just answer personally that for the past 15 years, I've primarily worked on voice, on phonation, uh, because at that time, it was clearly a less studied area of linguistic phonetics. And I found a dream team that allowed me to work in that area solidly within linguistics, but with a very interdisciplinary perspective. And I really felt like I was breaking some new ground there. And as it happens now, several of my students continue to work in this area. So now I don't feel that it's an underexplored area at all, the linguistics of phonation, of voice. But at the time, it was that feeling of, oh, here's something new. And the way to address it was to find collaborators who could help me see it in a new way. Well, I have two answers for that. I'm sure there are many others possible, but the obvious one is to contribute your research to JIPA, to the Journal of the IPA. For example, students often submit illustrations of the IPA, but also research articles. Obviously, the future of the IPA is partly the future of its journal, and so the more good stuff comes across the editorial desk, the better off we are. But if you wanted to be involved directly in the association, I think it's completely fine. You look at the list of committees that the IPA has. These are made up of members of the council, the 30-member council of the IPA, on a variety of committees. Each committee has a chair, and I think you should feel free to contact that committee chair, say you're interested in the work of this committee, and is there any way you can become involved directly? And in the committees that I have chaired on a couple of them, we have had students involved either ad hoc or briefly or more extensively. We haven't made any concerted effort to kind of institutionalize that, but I think most committee chairs would respond positively, especially if you have a particular skill that you would bring to the table that that committee would benefit from.
And for junior faculty as well, not just students.
Right.
Yeah, it's helpful when you're going for, at least at UCLA, going for promotion to have involvement with uh, scholarly organizations and showing leadership and volunteer work. So that's and it's fun. It's interesting. You get to meet people. So people who
Right.
may have valuable ideas that you can work with.
Right.